So many people thinking about I'm not doing this. How important it really was to have the person
I didn't respond to that.
so he was really.
I meditated care.
You were good.
Yeah.
I mean, like the snow has been so hard to turn because it's so hard to turn.
She was very spiritual. She tried to just building to do your body good. Yeah. Yeah, I think she wants to.
He was hoping to go, and then they changed the date. But I thought the yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is more or less what you all look like to me anyway, so. Oh, wow. Just go with it. Nice. Very good. Oh, it won't matter if you guys move. Oh, I see you're moving so you can see me. I'm thinking I might move slightly.
Yeah.
I could be quicker than Sean over this.
No, don't do that. I mean, it is light.
It is light.
I've been longing for the light
Yes.
for the longest time.
Whoa. Interesting. Hi. Nice faces. Have any of you heard of Master Sheng Yen? Master Sheng Yen is one of the great masters of the past. No one has heard of Master Sheng Yen. Wow. You haven't heard of Master Sheng Yen? He's the greatest Taiwanese, possibly Chinese master of the past century. He's passed away now. But at one point in one of his talks, he's a Zen master. He's giving a talk as a Zen master. And if you're called, it's a little different in Zen, and at least some forms of Zen, because if you're a Zen master, then there is the implicit claim of full awakening in a way that in most forms of Buddhism, you can teach, because, well, for mindfulness, for example, you can just teach if you want to. The only requirement for teaching mindfulness is that you want to teach mindfulness. You should be able to pronounce mindfulness if you're particularly interested in expertise. But you don't have to know anything about it. In some Theravadan schools, the very first thing you do is teach. Before you're taught, you teach. It's actually very interesting as a method. You have to teach tomorrow, so you have to find something, and then you just do your best. And that's how they kind of throw you in. Anyway, in some forms of Zen, to be presented as Zen master is to be presented as someone who's fully awakened. And so, speaking from that perspective, he at one point said, he stood up and he was giving a talk, and he said, the realization of non-self is essential in this practice. You can come over here and sit down. Welcome. Nice to see you. No, he said that the realization of non-self is essential. In fact, if I looked out right now and saw even one person, I would not be qualified to give this Dharma talk. Isn't that nice? I think it's really nicely put. But that's not what we're talking about today. It's just now Morgan and I were sitting here, which meant that I couldn't see one person, so I was temporarily qualified to give this Dharma talk. So, we're going to talk about adversity today, and in particular about adversity's relationship to a much larger theme in the world of mindfulness, which is equanimity. Equanimity comes from the word in Sanskrit upeksha, and it would be maybe nice if we just used the word upeksha or upekkha in Pali, but we don't. We use the word equanimity, and that means that we lose some of the connotations. The word in our tradition, in the Greek tradition, one of the words in the Greek tradition that relates to, because most of us here are Greek, for information. You may not know that, but Greek philosophy has an enormous impact on Westerners in general, in a way that we often don't know, because fish maybe don't know that they live in water. We don't know that in our civilization we live in Greek philosophy. But it means that we come in with a lot of very deep assumptions that we don't know that we have. And some of those assumptions are the misunderstandings that have been passed on through the centuries. So if you go back centuries and centuries, you're in Greece, and somebody was trying to tell you, a philosopher was trying to tell you about this way of experiencing things. There's this way, he was saying. It's this kind of a way or something. It's like how you could experience. It's hard to talk about this, but it's sort of like you let go or something. It's like letting go, maybe. We need a word for this. Let's call it apatheia. That's just a word we're going to use, apatheia. And it means that you let things come and go without resistance. Things happen and you accept that, and things end and you let them go. Let's call that apatheia. Well, they didn't do a very good job of explaining what they meant, and we didn't do a very good job of listening to what they meant. And therefore, as the centuries went on, that word became a common word in our language. Yes, the word apathy. So they meant something rich and beautiful, a way of experiencing things that makes everything more vibrant and more meaningful. And it ended up being turned into a concept that means it's less vibrant and less meaningful, and who cares anyway? And it's just apathy, just you're apathetic. So apathetic back in the day more or less meant enlightened. If you had truly experienced apatheia, you were a person who was fully alive. And nowadays you say as apathetic person, he's hardly alive. Another word that we have is complacency. And that's a word that I think is quite useful here, because I want to distinguish it from apathy, given that I'd like to respect the teachings of those individuals who were trying to tell us a new and better way of looking at life. So we need to know that we have a little bit of this built up inside of us, the sense that equanimity, that letting things come and go, is a kind of apathy, or you could say it's a kind of complacency. So what, who cares? Doesn't really matter to me anyway. I'll just go with this because there's nothing I can do. there's a little bit of that, and it's something that I, as a mindfulness teacher, experience all the time with myself and also with my students. There's a subtle sense that equanimity means giving up or not caring. That's something that I thought would be good to go into today. In fact, equanimity means that we are capable of caring more. It means we're capable of giving up less. And so it is, you could say, the opposite of, you could say it's the opposite of apathy. In very important ways, it is totally different. So, I guess I already started with a little bit of a story, so I'll just move on from there and get technical and detailed. And this could get a little boring here, so just try to come along with me. I'm going to talk about 6 categories of experience. It won't take long, but it's useful for the talk. I'm going to get a little analytical. Are engineers or mathematicians around here? Okay, good. So some people will enjoy this. The rest of you just come along with us. So if you think about experience, then you could say that on the one end of the spectrum, there's pleasant experience, right? There's pleasant experience, experiences we like. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, there are unpleasant experiences, experiences we don't like. And then in the middle, there are experiences that we don't really like or dislike, they just happen. So there's pleasant, unpleasant, and then what we're gonna call for now, why not? We'll just call it neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Just that's the middle category. Okay, that's 3. Now let's divide that up into 6. Because rather than talking about the experience itself, we're going to talk about our relationship to the experience. There are plenty of chairs over here. Just people start over there and fill in this direction. No problem. So rather than talking about the kind of experience, we'll talk about our relationship with the experience. And this is hard for us as Greek philosophers, because the Greeks were much more interested in characteristics than relationships. In the East, people were, in China, for example, people were much more interested in relationships than characteristics. Now, people were always interested in relationships between things, but in Greece, we're interested in qualities of things. So that would mean something like, you'd ask, why does wood float on water? And the answer is, because wood is light. That's the reason they gave, literally. Wood has the characteristic of levity, is how they talk about it. Well, that's not true. Or you could say it's true in some way, but it isn't true in a useful way. Is that wood, for now, just to not get too technical, wood is lighter than water. That's the significant point. And so that's why, in certain ways, the Chinese were much more advanced scientifically at that time. For example, they understood that the moon causes the tides, because they thought about relationships rather than, the ocean has the quality of tides. Somehow. So the same way we tend to think about qualities of things, but for now I'd like us to expand out a little bit, and rather than think about the quality of experience, of course, experiences have qualities, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. What is our relationship to that? Okay, so normally when we have a pleasant experience, our relationship to that is what? What's our what? What?
Pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure. That's right. Oh, yeah, we experience pleasure as a result of the pleasant experience. That's true. What was that? Joy. You could say we get joyful. That's true also.
Lightness.
Lightness. Those are more qualities, though. Wouldn't you say? You have the quality of pleasure. You have the quality of lightness and such. What's your relationship with the pleasure?
Attachment.
Attachment. Typically, we have a relationship with pleasure of attachment. We want to keep it, want to protect it, want to hold on to it. We get stuck to it. So there's a relationship with the pleasure. It's one of attachment, of clinging, of craving, of even, you could say, defensiveness, right? Tightness. We get tight around the pleasure. I want this pleasure forever, and I want more, actually. Right? This actually isn't enough. I want this and more, not less, ever. And if it starts going away, I'm going to suffer. That's right. So take that. So that's typically our relationship with pleasure. On the other side, there's unpleasant experience. So that could be adversity, for example. With unpleasant experience, what's our typical relationship? Aversion. Yes, we don't want it, go away, never come back. Yes? Mm-hmm. This is terrible, it's not for me. Unpleasant experience is not for me. And it's for other people, right? I'm very happy to push this off. I don't know if someone else has to take it, but I'm happy if I don't. So we're going to push off the unpleasant experience, get away from me. And in that, there's a fight, there's a conflict, and there's a kind of tightness. So the tightness, you'd have to say a tightness around unpleasant experience as well. So there's pleasant experience, unpleasant experience. Within the realm of experiencing the pleasant, typically we have attachment. Within the realm of experiencing the unpleasant, typically we have aversion. And this is the fun part. What about with the neutral stuff? Within that, we typically have the experience of complacence. Okay, it doesn't matter to me. Whatever. Okay, this can happen, I don't care. Yes? The shift in terms of mindfulness is basically the shift of changing from the experience of having a pleasant experience and getting tight around it to the experience of having a pleasant experience and relaxing into it. We relax and we know this experience is going to go away pretty soon. Pretty soon this pleasant experience is going to be gone. So that's fine. I'm good with that. And when we're good with that, then we can actually experience it more fully, more richly, because we're not spending all of our time with the pleasant experience holding on to it. We're not using up all of our energy grasping. We can let ourselves enjoy it. Just enjoy it as it comes, and then it's going to go. And we let it go, and we don't let that passing of the pleasant turn into suffering. So it's better, it's richer. On the other side, we have unpleasant experiences happen. Rather than aversion, we actually allow those unpleasant experiences to happen. Sounds crazy, I know. This one sounds crazy. This next one's going to sound even more crazy, so get ready. But this one's already pretty crazy. This pleasure one, you can kind of accept it logically. Yeah, I can follow that. But this one is pretty weird, and if you haven't experienced it, it's hard to imagine it. Fortunately, I know that most people in this room have experienced this, so maybe you'll spread to those who think that I'm crazy right now. But in fact, if you let an unpleasant experience happen, it's better than if you fight against it. Sounds totally crazy, I know. But in fact, this terrible experience is happening, and you let yourself experience that. Yes, disbelief. I know, I saying it have a little disbelief, actually. Even though I've experienced this, I don't know, probably tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, it still seems strange. Terrible thing is happening, and you let that happen. You let the experience arise without fighting against it. And in that way, we don't create suffering on top of the pain. And then we let it go, knowing that more unpleasant experiences are going to come soon enough. Yes, they're coming back, but for now it's going. We let that happen. But this middle one is actually quite interesting, because that experience of complacence is for most of us the most powerful obstruction in our spiritual path. As opposed to equanimity, which would be the most powerful support in our spiritual path. The difference between complacency and equanimity is very hard to see. This point is very difficult to understand. Of course, we can kind of intellectually understand it, but to directly experience it, right now, I'm feeling okay. Am I now complacent or equanimous? It can be very difficult to tell the difference. If it's complacency, then that's a terrible obstruction for two reasons. First of all, because it does deaden experience. As we said, experience gets dead. We have a so what, whatever attitude. Yeah, it's a sunset. There are plenty of sunsets. It's going to be another one tomorrow. Whatever. I got other things to do than just watch some sunset. Just one more ordinary sunset. Whatever. It's extremely dangerous because it robs us of the richness of life. And it's dangerous in another way, because it trains us to look at real situations of, for example, injustice, and say, meh, so what? There's always been injustice. I've never been able to do anything about it before. I'm actually busy today. So that's just how it goes. It trains us. That sense of whatever trains us to respond to real situations, not just our relationship with situations, but respond to the situation itself as if it's insignificant, as if it doesn't matter. And it's because of that, then, it's because of that subtle training in our minds, because of that habituation of so what, which at each time we do it, it seems like it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just a sunset. Sunsets don't really matter, remember? There are plenty of sunsets. So what? Well, first of all, sunsets do matter. But second, every time we say so what to the sunset, we're saying so what to the world. And that so what pattern gets subtly drawn into, say, bullying. I know some people who are teachers, I work with kids. Oh, why does bullying happen? Because people watch it happen and say, I don't really think there's much I can do. I mean, it's bad, but I got other things happening. So there's a subtle training when we experience things with a complacent attitude that doesn't just train the way we perceive the world. It trains us in the way we behave. And so it's extremely dangerous, even though we typically don't see it. Equanimity, on the other hand, is totally different. If we experience things of equanimity, then the sun is amazing. We realize that this sunset has never happened before, and it will never happen again. This is a unique experience, and it's a miraculous celebration that is possible for me for reasons I don't understand. Somehow I get to perceive, I get to experience a sunset today. There was no guarantee that I was going to experience the sunset today. No one came to me and said, good news, I guarantee you can see the sunset this evening. No one said it, and yet it's possible. No one said, good news, there's going to be a bunch of friendly people sitting with you this evening. I guarantee it. No one said that, and yet here it is. We get to experience that friendship as if it's a miracle, and we see that that's a more accurate way of looking at it. The complacency is a fabrication of our minds. The equanimity is an acceptance of reality. This is extremely important to see. And when we see it that way, then equanimity becomes the pathway. Equanimity becomes the means by which we open up to our conscience. Because of equanimity, we can hear that voice within that says, you should do something about this bullying. You should do something about this social issue. You should do something about this environmental problem. Because it does matter, and you matter, and your actions matter. And you start to feel that, and you begin to habituate yourself in that way. That's what we want to do here. That's why we're here this evening, so that we habituate ourselves to experience things in a rich way that show us how much, that let us feel how much. Each thing we do, each thing we see, each thing we hear, each thing we say, each thing we think Each thing we feel matters. We see that it matters a lot. It matters actually more than I know. And we directly perceive again and again that this matters more than I thought it did. We see that, and it doesn't become a burden. If we're still in a complacent state of mind, then that fact starts to feel like a burden. But if we're in a quantum state of mind, it just feels like a celebration. So this training to switch from complacency to equanimity is an enormous training. It's a highly significant training. So Michael, who wrote up the description for today, he wrote it up after minimal discussion with me. And so I wasn't entirely sure what I would be talking about. I thought I was talking about something slightly different, but in fact, this is what I'm talking about this evening. And so I asked him, I said, well, you thought this up. What did you think I was going to talk about this evening? And he said something so nice. He said, well, I think that you should talk about, and I thought you were going to talk about something that we had been talking about before. And he said it in a way that I think is better than how I said it, because he said it in such a poetic way. He said, most people, when we meet adversity, either tighten up or give up. Those are our two possibilities, which I thought was so well put. I really enjoyed the way he said that. We tighten up or we give up. In other words, we tighten up, and the only way we can think of loosening up is by giving up. Isn't that brilliant? He's really smart. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like here we are on our spectrum. We lost the pleasant experience. We were so attached to it, but it got taken away from us. The world is unjust. It's all against me, and I'm a victim. But here I am now in the terrible world of unpleasant experience. It's not fair. I hate it, and I'm going to tighten up against it. I'm going to fight, because I am not the person who should be experiencing unpleasant things. I should be exempt from unpleasant experiences. I don't know why no one heard about that. So here I am in an unjust, unfair situation in which I experience unpleasant things, and I'm going to fight against it. Fight against the world. And so we start to fight, and we get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, tighten up more and more, until we get to the point when we feel like, I can't do this. I can't fight anymore. I'm tired. I'm tight. It's exhausting. So remember our little chart that I made for the engineers in the room? So we have six different possibilities. One is that there's unpleasant, over here was pleasant, right? There's pleasant experience, and we experience it with attachment. There's pleasant experience, and we experience it with equanimity. There's unpleasant experience, and we experience it with aversion. There's unpleasant experience, and we experience it with equanimity. There's neutral experience, and we experience it with complacency. There's neutral experience, and we experience it with equanimity. So if we have this little chart here, then here we are, unpleasant experience, adversity. There's adversity, right? Sometimes that happens. You want to make a difference in the world? You want to make the world a better place? What are you gonna have? Adversity. It's just how it goes. You're gonna have adversity, because if there was no adversity, someone would have done it already. So there's adversity. You can just plan on it, right? Just jump right in, adversity. And now here we are experiencing it with aversion. Stop adversity. This isn't right. And we fight and fight and fight, but then eventually we've tightened up, and we don't want to be tight anymore. And so we, as he says, give up. Let's be clear, we're at adversity. We're now going to move, aren't we? Understand? Over here, adversity. We're going to make a move. It's like a game. It's like a game board. We're playing a board game, right? Okay, we're going to make a move now. You roll the die. You got one move. Okay, so one. Which way are we going to go? We got unpleasant experience, adversity. We're experiencing it with aversion. Which way should we move? Well, for most of us, we move over here. We say, I don't care. I don't even care about that anyway. So what? Because it's too painful to experience that tightness. So our goal is to shift over. We try to shift over to complacency. We get to just be complacent. Well, complacency isn't so bad. I mean, so what? Nothing matters anyway. It's fine. Whatever. I'm gonna just move on with my life. There's that experience. So the way Michael put it was so nice. He said, mindfulness gives you the ability to no longer shift over to complacency when we experience adversity, but instead to choose the other direction. There's another available direction to you, which is experience adversity, unpleasant experience, with equanimity. And when you experience it with equanimity, then, well, two things happen. One is you have the opportunity to receive that adversity as a natural part of what it is to make the world a better place, as a purification process. So I'm going to go through this adversity, and I get to be purified by that. And some of you have experienced this. You have pain, for example, and you let yourself experience the pain, and it's as if the pain purifies us. It's as if it strips us of our stuck places. It cleanses us. It's like it's a vacuum cleaner. It's like it pulls out our attachments, our stuck places. We give into that. We move with that. And with that, we get to have a totally different experience because there's a purification. On the other side, because we're experiencing that adversity, we're able to keep on with equanimity. We're able to keep on doing that good work for the world because it's not exhausting to us since we're not so tight inside. And since we're continuing to do that work for the world, we purify the world. So our own minds are purified and the world is purified. So that's pretty good. But there's something else that then happens as well, which is that because we begin to experience that adversity with acceptance, it itself, in an interesting way, becomes a much more ambivalent experience. There's a kind of pleasure, actually, in the unpleasant experience. I don't know if any of you are following me right now, but there's a kind of satisfaction in staying with this, in working through this. We can directly experience that this is working. Something's happening here. And that's deeply fulfilling. And it becomes somewhat ambivalent. So you then actually get to move in this direction. You can move into this experience of this is a really tough thing, but it's not just tough. It's kind of interesting too. It's not that it's not tough, but it's pretty compelling. It's hard, but it's pretty interesting. And there's that sense, and so that you're more in the middle, and you have then directly broken apart that complacency compared to the equanimity. And the ability to directly see the difference between complacency and equanimity, as I say, is, as far as I'm concerned, one of, anyway, perhaps the most significant insight in the path, because complacency is the most damaging quality of mind, and equanimity is the most healthy quality of mind in terms of this path. Equanimity is love and conscience, and I don't know how to say it, but it's a kind of happiness or bliss or joy, you could say, but in a way that isn't what most people refer to when they say those words. It's a kind of happiness that isn't happiness, kind of happiness that doesn't depend on happiness. Let's put it that way. Complacency is the lack of all that, the lack of conscience. If we're complacent, we do not have access to our ethical core. There isn't a way to gain access to that without love, without compassion. And compassion and love are in no way compatible with complacency. They're totally compatible with equanimity. In fact, they are equanimity. That's they're another word for equanimity. So, I'm over. Okay, quick finish. One of my favorite I mentioned this to Laura the other day. I listened to a monk named Bhikkhu Bodhi, who's a very impressive Theravadan monk. And he was talking about complacency, and he gave the official definition of complacency in one of his talks, which I just loved. He said, complacency means this: a non-judgmental acceptance of the present moment. Isn't that nice? You have a non-judgmental acceptance of the way things are. You just accept things as they are. That's the worst possible state of mind. Isn't that nice? I love that. It's just, I was thinking of playing it for you, but I decided not to try that. Sometimes we have technical issues, so I decided not to do it. But it's just a magnificent quote. He said it's just that you just non-judgmentally accept things and let them go just as they are. Just as they are, you understand, without judgment. Isn't that fantastic? So why is that funny, those of you who are laughing? Some of you may not be up with the most recent mindfulness gossip. So what's the most recent mindfulness gossip that makes this funny? What was that?
That is mindfulness.
Well, yeah, that's the definition of equanimity, or you could say it's part of the definition of mindfulness that we mostly use nowadays. Yes, most of the time when you hear people talk about mindfulness, that's the definition that they use, and so I really liked it that he put it that way, because I'm sure he knows that. So maybe not. Maybe not. He's pretty traditional, so he might not even be aware of the whole modern thing, the way that people have done it. So he might not even know, but I think he knows. And I thought it was nice. He just laid it out there that this is that the way most of us understand those words isn't nearly as deep as what equanimity, what mindfulness is supposed to be referring to. There are a number of issues there, because, for example, the most common one that I find people come again and again with is, well, wait a second, if I just accept things the way they are, then why would I try to make the world a better place? There's no ethics there. Ethics have now been removed from the path if you just non-judgmentally accept everything the way it is. Well, okay, great, then nuclear war suddenly becomes fine. I have equanimity with nuclear war, we could say. Yes? And that's extremely dangerous. So it's very nice that he puts it that way. There's something deeper. Equanimity is a very powerful relationship with experience, and something that we here are in the very special position of exploring and experiencing for ourselves. We've given ourselves this opportunity by not just reading an article about it and saying, now I practice mindfulness, but because we've set aside the time and joined a community in which we directly explore these issues. That's the point. That's what we have done by coming here. So well done. We have this opportunity. Let's take advantage of it.
What's the definition of equanimity?
Equanimity, I'd say, has just a more complicated definition than that. Shinzen has a way of putting it as well. But I think that in the end, if you ask what's the definition of upeksha, do you know that? I don't.
The formal technical definition.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you know it well? No. So the fact that none of us know it is probably significant. No one here knows it, right? The technical Buddhist definition of equanimity. Yeah, so that we don't know it is probably significant. It may not be a defined term.
It's also used in very different ways under different contexts.
Right. Yeah, so I think it's significant.
How do you think it's different from equilibrium?
Equilibrium, traditionally, I'd say there's a big difference. Yeah. I think equilibrium then would be different. I think that's all I can say right now in the no minutes that I have remaining to say it. But equilibrium seems more like a state, and equanimity seems more like a relationship.
Balance, equilibrium is more about equal balance.
Yeah, right.
But you're talking about equanimity in terms of being conscious and.
Yeah, the relationship with something. So let's explore this through practice. I know that definitions are often good. I mean, we are Greek, and Aristotle has had an enormous impact on us. We're supposed to use words well and define them carefully. Of course, we very much believe that he was right. But another way of looking at it is we could experience it and then know it for ourselves. So let's try that. Take a moment to straighten up and settle in. Bring your attention to whatever you're experiencing in your body at this time. Of course, there are many varieties of bodily experience. We may be experiencing relaxation. We may be experiencing tension. We may be experiencing emotions. Those emotions may be pleasant. You may feel safe, peaceful, happy, grateful, interested. They may be unpleasant. We may have difficult emotions in our bodies right now. Insecurity, anxiety, sadness, despair, anger, boredom. We may be experiencing physical sensations. The temperature of the room, the touch of our clothes, pressure against the chair or the floor, a posture of our bodies. We may be experiencing movement or flow or energy. That may feel very good, flow of energy, or it may feel more difficult, like a child who needed to sit here still might feel a lot of energy, but makes it difficult to sit still. For a time, pay attention to whatever bodily experience you have. It could be one of the ones I mentioned, or it could be something else. But in any case, whatever you're experiencing in your body, attend to that. For now, simply attend to body sensations. The body sensations occurring right now. All we're doing now is tracking body sensations. Tracking body sensations. As body sensations occur, we notice them. That's the practice. Of course, sometimes we might get distracted. That's no problem if we know what to do next. The moment that we notice we're distracted, we bring our attention back to our bodies. Just like we had any other task to do. Doing the task, we get distracted. When we notice, we come back to the task and keep going. And the task in this case is to notice what you're feeling at this time. And we never know what we're going to be feeling in the next moment. So we keep on paying attention to see, to feel. What experience is happening in my body right now? And as you pay attention to your experience, as you pay attention to the experiences happening in your body, notice those moments when you have aversion to the experience. And note that as aversion. Notice aversion. There's an itch and aversion. Both are present right now. And then some time might pass. You might relax. There's no aversion. Feel the temperature of the room, no aversion. Feel a little bit of difficult emotion. And again, aversion. Maybe it's frustration or boredom. Now there's aversion. Notice that. That's okay, you can stay with that as long as it's present. If your attention goes somewhere else, feeling the pressure of the floor on your feet, then there's no aversion anymore. So, no need to label aversion anymore. Feeling your breathing, there's not aversion there. Oh, there's some tension in my back. Aversion. Simply labeling that. If aversion is too long of a word, then you can say dislike, I don't like it. Or whatever word works for you, indicates that we're fighting against our awareness. We're aware of something and we're fighting that awareness. And simply continue with the technique, but whenever you notice aversion, label that in your mind. Say that to yourself in your mind. And when you stop noticing it, then just track body experience. It may arise constantly. You may constantly find aversion. That's fine. Label that. You may even have aversion to experiencing aversion. That's fine. Label that. Aversion. And it may not come up at all for you. You may be feeling very comfortable right now. And that's fine. You may find that you have aversion to things that you didn't think you had aversion to. You may find that you don't have aversion to things that you thought you did have aversion to. Both of those are fine. Simply continue to track your experience in this moment in your body, noting each occasion when you notice aversion. Very good. We'll continue with an exercise similar but a little bit different. You need to move around, get up, stretch, that's fine, but we'll continue to practice. As you track body sensations, as you pay attention to body sensations in this moment, now set aside noting aversion and instead note attachment or clinging. I like this. If attachment is too difficult of a word. Label it however you'd like. But when you notice attachment, note that, label it in your mind, and continue to pay attention to body sensations at this moment. Again, you may experience attachment a great deal, or you may not experience it at all. Either of those is fine. Simply attend to body sensations as they arise in your awareness. Anytime that you're attached to an experience, anytime you grab on to awareness, notice that. Label that in your mind, attachment. And then let the experiences continue. good. And now, set that aside. Continue to track body experience. And now note when complacency arises with certain experiences. Track body experience. Anytime you have a complacent or apathetic relationship with an experience, note that and label that. Complacency. Or, I don't care if complacency is too complicated a word. Simply track experience. You may discover a great deal of complacency. You may not find any. Either is fine, but continue with the exercise. This moment of body experience. If you find that you have a complacent attitude, complacent relationship with that experience, then note that. Notice that and label that. Very good. And now, for a short time, make this a little bit more complicated. Just give it your best shot. Stay with body experience and label all three: aversion, attachment, complacency. Stay with your body. If something arises and you're averse to it, label that aversion. And if something else arises and you're attached to it, label that attachment. Something else arises and you're complacent, label that complacency. You may find that one or two or three of these arise almost all the time. You may find that they don't. Either way is fine. And please stay with this moment's body experience, noting and labeling your relationship to it within these three categories. Very good. And now we'll just add one more word. Anytime you're not saying one of those three words, aversion, attachment, complacency, say the word equanimity. If your awareness is not subject to any of those three things, we'll call that equanimity. So for now, in each cycle, every few seconds, you should be saying one of those four words. Or if you want, you can change the vocabulary. But one of those four every few seconds. Each of us will find our own frequency. We'll find our own combination of those four. It may be primarily one, maybe primarily another, maybe evenly distributed, but discover for yourself, maintaining one of those words every few seconds. So within your mind, it may sound something like this: complacency, attachment, attachment, aversion, equanimity. equanimity, attachment, attachment, complacency, aversion, equanimity, aversion, equanimity. Continue to label, aware in each moment, relationship you have to body sensations. Good work. That was very good. A lot of action happening with that exercise. Good job staying with that and working with that. So now is the time for questions, comments, reports, anything at all. You're raising your hand.
I'm raising a hand. For me, there's a big difference between adversity in bodily sensations of hunger or pain and relationships or people. When I'm experiencing adversity with another person, I find myself incredibly incapable of responding to that in unhealthy ways.
So you said that sentence again.
Just well, not incapable, but I think it's so much, I don't know if it's practice or just something different, but I feel like it's much easier to respond to adversity that I'm experiencing in my body with mindfulness and in a healthy way. But when it's coming from a person or someone, it's just someone who I'm interacting with or someone with whom I have a relationship, it's like a whole different, it may have the same name, adversity, but I don't have the same tools to deal with it. I don't know what you would say to that.
Yeah, well, the first thing to say is that's common. Almost everyone says that, and almost everyone experiences that. And that's the good and bad news about being a human being. Yes, we're social creatures. Our relationships are extremely important to us and have, in all likelihood, the largest impact on our happiness, our health, of any aspect of our lives. And so it's reasonable that, given that our relationships make us so happy and have such a large contribution to our health, that our relationships also might be that which causes us unhappiness and gives us a less healthy approach. So this is how it is for most of us, and we accept that. We accept that relationships are typically a big challenge. So usually the way it's discussed is that you were talking about two ends of the spectrum. So one is that we're sitting still, maybe our eyes are closed, we're intentionally doing a technique that we've set aside time for. We've structured a situation in which there are no active relationships, and in fact, there's not much happening at all. And then we can do the practice to some extent. It would be a little harder to do that while looking around the room. A little bit harder to keep on doing that technique in the same way. Might work though. Some people find that is possible. Some people find it's very difficult. Even harder if we were to start walking around the room. Even harder if we were to start making eye contact with people as we walked around the room. Even harder if we started having meaningless small talk conversations with people. And then the final ultimate challenge is maintain equanimity while in a contentious argument with someone who's very important to us.
You asked me several steps
Yes,
beforehand,
of
but
course.
I'm not sure to it.
Exactly. So you, in the way you talked about it, you brought us from one pretty far up the spectrum of challenge level. And I think the first thing to say is that we accept that there's a spectrum of challenge. And so that's the reason we come to a place like this, to work on it in a way that we can establish the skill set. And then the point which is so difficult and unfortunately uncommon is to intentionally make use of the practice in the next most challenging situation. And then to intentionally make use of the practice in the next most challenging situation. It happens often that people will, maybe they've been practicing mindfulness for quite a while, and maybe they'll come to a teacher, perhaps me. Many people have come to me and said something like, I've been practicing for a while, and when I started, the practice was very powerful, it had a big impact. But it seems to have plateaued. It isn't having a big impact anymore. Why? What can I do about that? And of course, we're all different, but in 80–90% of cases, as far as I can tell, the reason is that we've stopped applying mindfulness to the next step in this challenge chain. So we're, in other words, to put it more bluntly, we're not applying the practice to our lives. We sit for some time every day, it feels good, and then we've become complacent about the fact that we're gonna subconsciously set that aside now and get on with things. I'm gonna go back to the real world and do real things where real work gets done. Without intentionally moving from step to step. So one of the ways that this, okay, so good. So you're saying, okay, thanks, Saryu. Now I know that I should apply life. Right? Thanks. How? That's a reasonable question. How do I do it? Well, this is how you do it. There's a very clear how. And that is, and this is actually, this how is one of the best predictors that I know of for predicting how far a person will take the practice. Okay, so to the extent that a person does what I'm about to say, how far they're going to take the practice is, well, there's a clear correlation. I think there's a clear causation here. So if you do this, then it's very likely that your practice will become deep, will change your life. If you don't do this, then the practice will, peter out typically, or plateau at best. And that is, do you consider the next challenge, just the next one, okay? Whatever the next one is. Do you consider the next challenge to be fun or terrible? Is it fun is this a fun challenge? Oh, I maintain a certain depth while sitting. I wonder if I could open my eyes and get up and keep that level of depth. That would be interesting if I could. It would also be interesting if I couldn't. Let's find out. This is going to be great. I'm about to open my eyes. Here goes. Or is it, oh no, I have to open my eyes now. This is terrible. It's never going to happen. It's too big of, oh no. Oh well. And there it is. Complacency on. Right? We open our eyes, it's fine. It's no big deal. I'm going to get on with my life. And that complacency is what causes a practice to plateau or peter out. So the how is constantly cognitively reframe the next challenge, the next chain in the challenge chain, the next chain link, next link in the chain of the challenges to something fun, something exciting, something unknown, something appealing. And then we naturally want to do it again and again. It becomes exhilarating. And that sense of exhilaration is it exhilarating to move on this, even to fail? Oh, I couldn't do it today. Maybe I can do it tomorrow. Who knows? That is an excellent predictor for how far we'll take this. So, so this is very useful, I think. You just work it. You cognitively, and then cognitively frame it again, and again and again and again, until it starts to become automatic. So all that so far, is that useful so far? Am I at least talking about what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yes. The continuum is helpful, right? And baby steps.
Yeah.
And practice.
Yeah.
And the self-talk is, that's what I hear, what you're saying too, that how you frame that is important.
Right. And then know that you are, that as you move along this, the power you have for influencing the world is increasing. So if you're with someone and they are doing something that's causing you to tighten up, then you have confirmed that human relationships have enormous power. Well, good news, it's a two-way relationship. So that means that if you could have any equanimity, then you are injecting that into them. They're getting infected with your equanimity. That means that from now on, as long as that influence is there, they're going to be more compassionate, happier, more ethical, more aware, more intelligent. You're giving them that. And therefore, since they're now going to do a bunch of stuff, you're giving that to the world. So know that as the challenge level increases, as that happens, it's a bigger and bigger game. There's enormous opportunity here. And again, you want to frame that as an opportunity as opposed to something that's overwhelming and too much. Okay. So I hope that's helpful, but I'm going to actually say one more thing because I don't know we're finished with this quite yet. So the last thing is this. If I heard you correctly, we have this recorded so we can test me. You said, when I'm attending to sensations in my body, I can do this, I have the tools. But when I'm in a relationship with someone else, then I don't feel like I have the tools. Understand that?
Something like that.
I'm not trying to quote you directly, but
Yeah.
I'm getting the meaning.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you're in a relationship with someone else and you feel bad, where do you feel that? I'll give you a hint.
I was going to say it depends on the feeling.
Okay, but tell me that. Go for it. Where do you feel those bad feelings?
Sometimes in my stomach,
Excellent.
and then when it's anger,
Yes?
I don't know where that one is.
Oh, just guess.
I don't know. It's a tightness.
Yes. Excellent. Good guess. Sadness.
Sadness is here too.
Excellent. Despair. Frustration.
That one's higher up.
Hate. Malaise. Melancholy. Loneliness.
It's all kind of in the center.
Interesting. So, is there a general term for the place where all of those different experiences happen? A two-syllable word starting with B.
Or your belly button.
Yeah, belly. I like belly. That's good. I was referring to body. So, but yeah, I like belly too. So we feel all that in our body. So in a very important way, when you're in a conversation with someone else and it's hard, you're still feeling all of it in your body, which means that in a certain way, you're having exactly the same kind of experience when you're talking with someone as when you're sitting still with your eyes closed.
It's like they're poking.
That's fine. It's still something you're feeling in your body.
Yeah.
That the poking is still a body sensation.
Yeah.
And so you can apply exactly the same technique. No change. Now that's very hard for us to believe. And the time for each of us, the boundary around our practice, the place where our practice ends, is the place where we say to ourselves, the practice doesn't apply to this anymore.
Right.
The moment we say that, it doesn't apply anymore. Why? Because we have to apply it. So if we say it doesn't apply, it suddenly doesn't apply. It's true, proof. See, it's not applying. But we don't notice. I decided it doesn't apply, so I stopped applying it. But we can see, I'm sitting here, body sensations, body sensations, body sensations. I look at you, have a conversation, body sensations, body sensations, body sensations. Close my eyes again, body sensations. Turn the other way, body sensations. Turn back, body sensations. In that way, it's always the same. I'm having all of those feelings in my body. Just for theoretical completeness, taking a long time on this, but just for theoretical completeness, it's okay if, as you pay attention to your body, you discover that the shape of your body isn't what you thought it was. You may not feel that your body is the shape that it looks like. It also may not feel like it's the size that it looks like. You may feel emotions around what you look at and see. It may feel like your emotions are filling the whole room or the whole world, but you just say, well, that's my experience of my body. I'm feeling that. That's how big my body is when I feel it. It's not how big my body is when I see it. That's all. Lots of things are different when you look at them and feel them. You know? So you just accept, okay, however it feels is how it feels, and I'm going to stay with that and have this interaction and let the body sensations be what they are and apply exactly the same tools. Knowing, of course, that there's a challenge in doing that and that that's okay. How is it? So, try. Are you trying it now?
Maybe I'm just fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Good. Anything else? That was a good question. Very helpful.
I have one small comment and an experience. So I'm thinking about complacency and equanimity. I didn't really like the definition that the master gave, and I was wondering maybe it was lost in translation, or maybe he was making a joke, or maybe he just.
The definition of complacency?
Yes.
Mhm.
The reason is when you apply awareness to complacency, you're lying to yourself, and you notice it's not that you accept, you don't accept it off. You turn it off, so it's like
Right.
you're in resignation, which is
Right.
very, very different than acceptance. And you can know that from your body.
Right.
If you're not sure if you're fooling yourself here.
Right.
You can go in your body and notice the difference between like a sinking feeling and an alive feeling. And in my own experience, I noticed an attachment to aversion today.
Yeah, right. You know, attachment to aversion.
I'm trying to attach to something else.
Yeah, right.
Getting attached to aversion.
Yes, interesting.
So it was a very helpful exercise, and
It what?
it was a helpful
Oh, good.
exercise, just going back to it again and again, and just being with it and
Mhm.
letting it be there.
Mhm.
There it is, there it is.
Yeah.
Aversion.
And practicing, as you put it, accepting it.
Yeah, just being
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And was there an alive feeling with?
Oh, definitely, it was
Mm.
shifting.
Yeah.
It would shift and the thought would come in and make it tight again, and when I'm right, it's like,
Uh-huh.
there's that thought that creates that version again. And then just noticing it. And then just focusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So it wasn't lost in translation because he's a native English speaker, but I do think that he was trying to make a very specific point with that, by more or less quoting Jon Kabat-Zinn.
So yeah, I mean, I was thinking he might be being human.
Yeah, I think he was probably making a point, and I believe that the point was, it would be very easy to take the definition to interpret something like unconditional acceptance of the way things are without judgment.
Yeah.
Be very easy to interpret that as an unethical, an amoral apathy towards life. And I think that's the point. He's saying there is such a thing as cultivation of mind. There is such a thing as being of service, and we don't want to subconsciously use this definition. And so I think it's sort of useful because he said the same words and asked again, how are you interpreting this? And if we listen, then we can offer in that way. I think he's giving us a chance to hear how we ourselves understand that definition, which is why I wanted to quote it.
Important.
Yeah, I like
Especially
that.
in that community where you can confuse between complacency and
Right.
equanimity.
Right.
very easily.
Yeah, and the point you bring up is really great. You can be averse to aversion. You can be attached to aversion. You can even have complacency with aversion. And the same in all the others. You can be attached to complacency. You can be averse to complacency. You can have complacency regarding complacency. You can be attached to attachment. You can have attachment and be attached to that. You can be averse to attachment. And you can be complacent regarding attachment. And once we start looping through, that's a loop that doesn't have to ever end. You can just keep looping. So it's really great that you bring that up. Thanks.
Actually, I was averse to attachment, to a lack of feeling.
You're averse to attachment
Yeah.
to a lack of feeling.
Yeah.
So you're having a lack of feeling in your body.
Mhm.
You're attached to that.
Yeah.
But you sure wish you weren't.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. That's amazing. Really, this is a very precise conversation right now. It's very insightful. The exactitude of our delineations are very impressive. Wow.
And I actually thought that was related to what you were saying to me last week about notice when you have thoughts, how your body feels.
Mm-hmm.
And I was noticing over the last week that I noticed when I had thoughts, I actually had no feeling in my body.
Right.
And
And you liked that?
I did like,
Right.
yeah.
Yes. That's right. And this is, it's so strange because a lack of feeling in our body, you could call peace. You could call it that if you wanted to.
I guess.
You could. And there's actually a use in thinking of it that way. There's a use in considering there's a total lack of body sensation. Couldn't that be a kind of peace? I bring it up because I was brought up Quaker. And in terms of Quakerism, there's a great emphasis on restfulness, on seeing light rather than objects, on feeling relaxation or even that sense of peace, forgetting our bodies, losing track of body sensations as a deep restfulness, and then also, of course, silence, attending to silence. So that sense of inner light, of stillness, and of silence. Am I right? These are terms almost constantly used in the tradition of the Friends. So I was talking about sitting in stillness, tending silent worship, yes, and the inner light. We talk about these things all the time in the Quaker tradition. So we have that sense, and the interpretation of these things is different in different traditions, but the general framework of restfulness as a first of all, an inherently valuable experience, potentially very pleasurable, and second, as a deeply fertile field for wisdom to emerge that we could never have thought of, but which is then undeniable. That experience is one that's worth exploring, I think. So if you have that sense, attend to it. The thing is, we want it, most of us. We really want that. For most of us, the only way we can get it is through thinking. Most of us have thoughts because they either make us feel good or they make us feel nothing. And the important point that I usually talk about for people who are thinking a lot is know that both of those are useful experiences. Feeling good is useful. Feeling nothing is useful. And it's okay if you sound attached to that. So that's great. Let yourself, rather than be attached to it, just let yourself appreciate it. Give in to it. Surrender to it. Have equanimity with it. And then it may have a life of its own. Anyway, what were you going to? Was that all?
That was all.
Okay. Great. It's fun to explore. to explore. We think so much because of the impact it has on our bodies in most cases. Most cases. Usually we don't care that much about the thoughts. But we care about the impact. We care about how the thoughts make us feel, including that they might make us feel restfulness, or you could say nothing. Great. A clear conversation. We still have 2 minutes if there's a 2-minute comment or poem. Yes?
I have a quick comment.
Yeah.
I was interested to experience that I felt attached to, I'm not sure if it was an aversion or an uncomfortable feeling, but I started becoming attached to this hunger. Like I experienced hunger in my belly, and then I would think about what I was going to have for dinner.
Yes.
And I started getting attached to that. And it might be because the thinking brought away the hunger, but I started becoming attached to, I'm not sure if it was the hunger or the aversion or the thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that's worth exploring. This just has to be explored. Isn't that nice? Everything becomes interesting when you practice mindfulness. You have a slight feeling of hunger. It's fascinating. Great. So we finish with invitations to make a difference in the world. You take several minutes at the end to announce opportunities to make the world a better place. And that brings us right back to the chain of challenges that Morgan and I discussed. We're sitting here, and that's very good. We develop certain skills. That's very good. We then attempt to apply those skills to our entire lives, and that's really good. There are certain issues of social, environmental, personal justice that we might suggest to each other as an opportunity. We can go. It may be wonderful. It may be great. We get to go make a difference, feel wonderful. You can explore that with mindfulness. There may also be, as Michael talked about in our discussion and the announcement he sent out, there may be adversity. We may be trying to make a difference in the world and there's adversity. It's hard. People disagree, or the status quo is very stuck. And it's hard to make a difference. And then to that also, we get to apply these practices. So I don't know, do you have the list? We always bring a few, but yes.
There's a movie showing at Main Street Landing called She Sings to the Stars by John Perkins, who, if anybody doesn't know John Perkins, he wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which is a fabulous book, actually. And he wrote The World Is As You Dream It, and it's a spiritual movie, and it got boards, and I don't know more than that, but it's supposed to be pretty.
That's 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Yeah, and you can get tickets at Flintix.
Syntax.
Yeah.
When?
Saturday.
Main Street Landing on Saturday.
This Saturday, 6 days.
Yes.
Yep. Great. Anything else? Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to have challenges and bring equanimity to numerous interactions, particularly through phone banking, for someone who I believe will make the world a much better place.
Right, and so you're inviting others to do the same. How would someone get involved in that?
Downtown at the on Church Street, right across from Red Square, at the end of Church Street near Main Street. There is his headquarters, national presidential headquarters are right there, and they're always open for people to just come in and pick up the phone.
Great,
Is that City
They have
Hall?
work.
Is that City Hall?
It's right next to City Hall. Yeah. Like a couple doors down.
Do you have it yet?
And you can also, and there's also an opportunity to do it from home as well.
Oh, great,
Active things.
great.
So there's quite a few things that we have listed here, but I won't mention all of the ones that are further away. We can mention them as we get closer, but tomorrow actually, March 7th at 5:30, there's a presentation on free trade versus fair trade with an emphasis on the economy and healthcare at the UVM Medical Center. You can find more information from the Peace and Justice Center.
Sorry,
On
when was that?
tomorrow at 5:30. On Friday, March 18th, from 1 to 4 p.m., there's a nonviolent engagement in conflict at Linden State College. On March 17th at 7 p.m., there's a film screening of Joanna Macy's The Great Turning. And this will be at the All Souls Interfaith Gathering in Shelburne.
You can just say the time and date for all them, beginning and end. It's hard to remember.
Right, and that one is March 17th at 7 p.m. And I think that is all that is relevant, that is upcoming.
Anything else? Yeah.
Well, mine is more of an inquiry. If anybody has an idea, my family and I would like to get involved in doing some things for this world and other things. And if anybody knows a site or sites that would list some ongoing opportunities that we could consistently do. In other words, not just one-day events. But, so,
Great,
speak to me after the meeting, perhaps.
Great.
Sites are just general
great,
places to go.
great. Very good, thank you. Very good. Oh, yes?
I'm from CML, and if you liked this, tell all your friends. Thank you.
We are a group of friends, and we're always happy to gather more friends. This community is very precious. There's an enormous power in community. And as Anna says, it's very useful to invite others into this community. It's very useful to share what we're doing and why. And it's a great gift to all of us. Each of us who comes is a great gift to everyone else. So I'm very grateful to have all of you, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. This coming week at CML will be in silent retreat, and Kyoshin, Kyoshin here is an excellent mindfulness teacher, and she'll be leading this next week. So thank you for doing that, and thank you all for coming.
And maybe one more thing would be worth saying, since Anna mentions it, that not only if you feel inspired to invite your friends to join us for this meeting, but also we are actively looking for more residents to join us full-time at the center and to kind of live a very difficult schedule that we live of doing this practice full-time, but really having the opportunity to take these challenge steps and really push the envelope on how far we can apply the practices, and then also doing service work and running a nonprofit that enables us to give back and be of service also. And so if you know of anybody who the idea of doing something crazy like that would
rewarding.
and rewarding would be inspiring to them, please let them know to contact us and we can talk more about what that might look like.
You can come and lose their life and never get it back.
What a great ad.
Pretty good. Nothing better. It's really good stuff. And we'll be doing chanting at 7:15, is that correct? In 15 minutes, we'll have 10 minutes of